age. Grant.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. It's 1 o'clock. Okay, we have a few people here. We can maybe start. For people that are just joining us, welcome. This is what we call a rabbit hole meeting. And basically it is taped. So if you don't want to be on, just turn the bottom left-hand corner. You can turn off your microphone and you can turn off your video. We suggest everybody turn off the microphone unless you're going to speak, because what happens is like with you here with Mark there, when your microphone is on and there's noise in the background, your camera will come on automatically. That's how this thing works. So if you're going to talk, turn your microphone on and talk. And Desta is going to be, she's going to be watching the hands. If you want to say something, if you want to contribute or make a comment or something, put your hand up, and Desta will step in and identify to me that somebody has their hand up or they want to contribute, and we'll do it like that. And we're going to start off today with Greg. This is we're going to give it like 10 minutes. I'm not sure that it's not completely 100% experiencer related. So we have an event that happened that Greg, you can take over your phone or your screen. Do you know how to do that in the middle of the screen there? The share.
Yeah. I figured it out. Thanks.
Okay. So let's start with that, and then I want to maybe go to Philip if he wants to talk, because he's been on here a few times. I think he's got some wisdom for us, and I'd like to get his input on because he contributed a little bit at the end of one of our rabbit holes. And anybody else who wants to jump in, put your hand up. Desto is the referee here. She'll get you in on the conversation. But let's start with Greg, and he's going to take over the screen, and he's going to do a little presentation about something that people may want to discuss. So go ahead, Greg. Take over the screen.
Okay, thanks. Okay, yeah, this is concerning something that came up in a chat box in our last rabbit hole on the 31 of August. And it was a request for comment by a woman named Jean. And she posted a link to an alien face seen in Antarctica. And so just out of curiosity, I checked it out. And lo and behold, it took me all the way back to January 2007 download that I'd experienced while meditating. And Jan, this should be of interest to you too, because this is going to be connected to your popcorn man. I watched your video interview yesterday with Grant. So anyway, it has a lot of connections into our UFO community here, as well as our individual experiences. So let me bring up the image that actually an Italian fellow in August of 2013 posted on his blog. And it was an alien face that he found down in the southwest area of Antarctica. Now, of course, we all know that these things are related to what they call pareidolia. It's a psychological phenomena where people see and recognize shapes as in clouds, rock formations, or otherwise unrelated objects or data. But for our purposes, we're erring on the side of the irrational. And so it's important that we don't rationalize these kind of things away, but take them as potential meaningful connections to a larger dialogue, a larger conversation. So let me bring up the images here. Can everybody see that? Okay. So on the far left, if you look at Google Earth at the coordinates that are given, it'll zoom you right into this image. This Now, this image was taken by Google Earth in on September 28th of 2012. And where the red dot is here in Antarctica is where that face appears. And this face, by the way, is a half a mile long in this direction. And now on the website of the Italian guy who first founded this, his image appears to have been taken from Google Earth at a previous snapshot of some unknown date, but presumably before 2012. So that's the image. And what is of interest to me is that when I saw that image, I immediately flashed back, like I said, to a download that I had in January of 2007. And that download, I'll skip down to it here. Well, I missed some images here. Oh, here it is. That download, if you look at the central one here of this female figure standing at the end of a tunnel looking at the globe of the Earth, its south pole, is what flashed back into my mind. And this, in my inner world, is an inner figure known to be Sophia, or wisdom. And something smacked into the South Pole, an asteroid or something, but I realized it had to be the image to the left of this strange-looking unidentified object, this UFO, is carrying a large sphere, and it had red glowing upward and downward pointing triangles, a set of 3 of them going across the bottom here. So all this is connected. So apparently this thing impacted the South Pole and created this eruption of steam and water or whatever. And then a little while later, the colors changed to this phallic-looking object was kind of cyan blue. And now this figure of Sophia of wisdom, the goddess, is holding a walking stick here in her right hand. So after I saw this image, a couple days later, suddenly the eye, the left eye here in this image here, as you can see, I changed the colors to correspond to the vision I saw. The colors in the vision were actually this kind of blue cyan coloring. And the image actually I saw was rotated counterclockwise 90 degrees. And counterclockwise means, and when you understand this from a psychological point of view, it means a descent. You're going into the unconscious, so to speak. And the coloring of cyan with all this blue reminded me of avatars, like the Lord Krishna here you see in India. Their avatars have a bluish skin. Now, what intrigued me was when I was listening to Jan's interview with Grant, was he had in his adolescence, I guess it was, Jan, you had a visit from a popcorn man, you call him, and he was dressed in red and yellow clothes, and your whole room turned yellow and red, I guess, if I remember right. But nevertheless, I wanted to mention to you today, Jan, that I have a background, a PhD in theoretical physics, and one of the things in cosmology is that there are not just, we don't live in just a 4-dimensional world, we live in an 11-dimensional world. And so where Sophia is standing in this tunnel, that's the 5th dimension. She's looking back into our space-time from a 5th dimension. And the popcorn in my material is used to demonstrate the hidden dimensions that we cannot see, the additional 7 dimensions. And I've had images of there being a popcorn rain. In other words, that there's some kind of global phenomena that is trying to manifest, that will involve all of us, entering a 5th dimension to learn new things from that place. So it struck me that your visitor was from a 5th dimension, in other words, Jan. And by the way, the mosquito here is was coming out of this piece of popcorn in my vision. And the mosquito, of course, is the most deadly animal on the planet, as we all know. I just finished reading the latest book out called The Mosquito. And it's responsible in the book for having killed 52 billion humans during the course of the planet life here on Earth in the last 200,000 years, in other words, out of the 115 billion that have been born into existence here. So it's a deadly animal. And only the female mosquito bites. So it's a connection to the goddess. And what that means for us psychologically is that whatever is coming out of that 5th dimension is going to have one hell of an impact on our worldview. It's going to have it's going to, how would you say, in other words, it's going to evolve our worldview, our consciousness. Now, a little later, that UFO I showed you here, that's not really well defined, came in more defined. And you can see it over here on the far right. It shows the diamonds as red and white alternating diamonds carrying a large sphere. Now, a sphere symbolically means wholeness. So what the goddess is bringing to the earth is wholeness. And that has tremendous global implications. It's meant to evolve our consciousness so that humanity becomes one. And that's kind of our collective experience. We sense that there's some kind of unity that's trying to be formed amongst us. Anyway, so these are some of my reflections on the face on Antarctica that I wanted to share today. It involves Sophia, the goddess, who is really an avatar maker, trying to help humanity obtain something like a chip off of her block in various sizes to help us evolve our consciousness so we don't destroy the planet. Okay, that's my spiel. Thanks for listening.
Jan, do you have any questions? I have one question for you. It has to do with Sophia. Have you got other images of Sophia? Because as you know, I'm not sure if any of the Shasta people were here on the top of the mountain. When they went up to the top of the mountain, there was this female figure appeared, and when they were in the cave, there was a female figure walking around. And I've just got some photographs, and I think Debs may have seen them. These were from the Winnipeg Folk Festival, which I guess was, what, a month or 2 months ago or whatever?
2 months ago, yeah.
2 months,
Two months ago.
And the figure, no, I don't have it on my, do you have it, Debs? Do you have that photo?
Oh, you know what? I don't have it downloaded, but I bet I can find it really quickly.
Okay, whenever you can, if you can show this photo, it's, I about fell off my...
You're talking about Brad's
photo, yeah.
okay.
These are the two of them there. And then that goes back to this idea, and Chris Bledsoe, if you're familiar with the Chris Bledsoe encounter, he has first these guardians come to him, and then when he doesn't talk for 4 years, he's brought to this, he calls the Lady of Light. And so this female figure keeps appearing. So that'd be my question for you, Brad, is what's your take on this, Sophia? And are there other examples of this this woman appearing? You're talking about wisdom, which is basically what was sort of implied at the Shasta event. She had her hand, as we'll explain. We're going to put out the actual whole encounter where she has her hand and she has this port in her hand, like a computer port in her hand, like a download thing, and that there was actually a download of information that took place from this woman. So can you give me some further details on your interpretation of Sophia? And then if Debs can come up with a photo, we'll show you a photo that was taken here in Winnipeg just recently.
I did find it, so I'm looking at how to share my content
The
with you
screen,
guys.
you go to the middle there, the green thing there, and
Share content, yeah. And what I'm sharing is the photo that his friend took at this festival.
Yeah.
Of the screen. Okay, so let's see if I can do that.
You keep mentioning Brad. Where's Brad?
Brad is not on our meeting today. I think he was here last week, but he's just, I had a meeting with him a couple days ago at the university, and he showed me these photos of this woman that appears on these photographs, and it's pretty dramatic when you see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love to see it.
I don't think I'm doing it right. Sorry, I haven't done this before. I apologize. Let's see. Photos. There it is.
By the way, I forgot to mention, if you wanted to, you could do a screen capture of the images that we were presenting, or anybody presents, and you can have them for yourself. Like I'm going to screen snap this one here for myself.
Yeah.
We have looked at this a lot, and then we talked about maybe it was a holographic projection for, you know, a band, or, you know, because sometimes they do freaky stuff at concerts and they don't explain anything. We thought it was a marketing thing or whatever. And then he found the image on Shutterstock from something. But what I was getting is, even if it was an image that existed before, and even if it is a projection, there's just all this weird anomalous stuff that's going on with it. If you examine it closely, I don't know if we can zoom it up. Yeah, we can. It just showed up over the whole festival. At first, it showed up on a scrim that was covering all the speakers.
Yeah.
But it was going beyond the scrim, and
Yeah.
there was nothing projecting from the front or the back. So, but what I was getting is that whoever was projecting this was trying to get a message through using, actually it was a divine feminine symbol, but it was someone's ancestor that was trying to get a huge amount of information out to a big group of people. So, and then I, you know, went on to other things because he was still trying to get through it and everything. And then I just kind of forgot about it till today. That's interesting that you bring it up.
Yeah. Well, Deborah, that's very interesting because when you zoomed it up, could you do that again?
Yeah.
I want to take a screen save. It's like she's wearing a bridal veil or something, you know?
Mm-hmm. A lot of people in our group who saw it said it was kind of, they felt like it was kind of an evil looking symbol, and that wasn't what I was getting at all. What I was getting is it was like an ancestor type energy coming through the divine feminine. But
yeah.
And as Deb points out, there's actually two photos. There's this one, and then there's the one with the speaker thing along the stage.
Right. Now I'll try to go find that too.
Disappears, and it's not Brad. It's the guy beside him, who is apparently Roman Catholic or whatever. And I don't think Brad even explained to him what this is all about. He just got these photos. He said he figured this guy's worldview would collapse if he's suddenly brought in UFOs and stuff like that. So
yeah,
this guy really doesn't. And I don't know if you can comment on this, but apparently some other people got photos, but I'm not. I've only seen these photos 2 days ago.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to pull the other one up because it's more in the daylight, and you'll be able to see. Let's see, where am I here now? I'm lost on Zoom. Let's see, we'll stop the share and then I'll go to another one. Photos. There we go. So this is the first photo he sent us.
That's a cool one, yeah.
And if you, I'll zoom it in for you. You see that it's kind of enclosed in the box of the scrim that's covering the speakers, which you normally see at a big festival, you know, but let's zoom it up. and her fingertip is going further than the screen, what would be a projection screen if you were actually projecting onto something. So if you look at that, the fingers are going past the screen on her, what would be your left, but the photo or your device's right page. So yeah, just interesting.
It is
Bizarre.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
well,
it showed up in that other picture at night. So
well, that's the compensation, isn't it? The bizarre.
well, yeah.
To our too rational, how would you call it, zeitgeist of our time. You know,
Exactly.
it's a compensation, a need to let in the irrational. That's why it's so important. I know for me, because I'm as trained as a scientist, it's hard for me to get into these fuzzy boundary value conditions here that we
Right.
see.
Well, that was my first thought when he sent these over. I'm like, I'm in the music world. I'm married to the music world. I've seen these things a lot. I had just been to a Tool concert where this technology, they use some of the most cutting edge technology in their stage productions, and they do use holographic images projected onto almost invisible scrims all over the stage. So I just had that experience, which, by the way, there were UFOs flying around in the arena at that concert. That's a whole other story. But when I looked at this and zoomed in, I'm like, okay, I know how this technology works, and it doesn't work like that.
But even if it is a fake, we should cut it a lot of slack, because
Yeah,
there's something in somebody's psyche out there that thinks this is important.
that's what my message was getting. Yeah, that's what my people were getting.
And is gripped by it. And in fact, it's becoming it's going to become a global phenomenon if it already isn't.
Yeah.
Where everybody is going to have this alien psychic invasion that leads us back to the image at the South Pole. But anyway.
Could I ask a question here about this image?
Yeah.
It looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like in the daylight image, the veil is not over her face. And in the night image, the veil is over her face. And I wonder if there's significance to that, or significance to the fact that she's wearing a veil.
The veil, if you come down, I'm zooming it in even more, the veil is over her face because you can see the little flowery border now that I've zoomed in. Can you see that, Jan?
Yes.
So
yes.
In front of her, it's just less apparent, but that's a good observation. I would have caught symbolic meaning from that as well.
Yeah, even the fact that she has a veil at all, that just the veil,
the veil,
it's transparent.
Exactly.
What does anybody have any ideas of what the significance of this veil could be?
Yeah, I do. It's about the sacred inner wedding. It's everything Carl Jung talked about. It's the holy inner wedding. Mm-hmm. We're so into the rational that we need to wed the irrational, is another way of putting it.
And the veil is becoming more and more transparent between the irrational and the irrational, or the physical and the rest of the universe. Words, right?
And well, the word apocalypse means revelation. It literally,
exactly. Doesn't mean destruction.
It literally means to take away the veil from that which has been hidden. So mm-hmm. Her veil is semi-transparent, and it's revealing that it's the feminine principle that's coming, and it's bringing wisdom and knowledge that we need to integrate. But it's mm-hmm. all symbolic. We need to look at all our experiences symbolically. We're not the symbolic life.
Right. I mean, this is the dream, right? And the way that you interpret a dream is with symbology. So,
And in a way, we're all having the same dream.
Yeah.
It's just geared and tailored to our life experiences individually. So like when you're up at Mount Shasta, everybody doesn't have the same experience, but they have an experience of the other side. And it's in a context of their life experiences somehow. So when you stand at the door, that's like a gate into the underworld or into the unconscious, your unconscious, where you will meet the things that you need to integrate.
Right. And everybody's experiences then are filtered through the lens of their past experiences as well. So what they're going to perceive in that experience, for instance, at the door, is going to be brought through the context of what they've experienced before, and that's what their filter is going to be. But having that kind of an experience that these people had at the door at Shasta breaks that lens so that they can see reality clearly. That's my perception of what's going on with them with that. So, I mean, I've had those kind of experiences myself. The vision quest, if you will, experience shatters that lens that colors everything from the past.
Right. By the way, John, how do you say your name?
Yawn, like you're.
Okay, I yawn a lot, so I can do yawn. Your colors of red and yellow struck me as very interesting. It's something that's through and through in my material. So if you ever want to have a private chat about it, I'd be glad to share what I had with it.
Yeah, I think I'd love to hear it now. I think I don't know if anybody. It seems relevant.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Colors, by the way, are very important to pay attention to. And I wanted to always ask Grant, I think it's connected to his Charlie Red Star, actually. Grant, could you tell us, was the colors in Charlie Red Star not just red? Was there orange or yellow involved? I guess he stepped away. Okay. Well, anyway, one of the things that Arcturus, the star Arcturus, people are having that come up. They're saying they're having ET visitors from the star system in Arcturus. Now, if you look up, you see, this is where you start not taking that literally. This is where you start thinking symbolically. So you got to do your due diligence. You got to do your homework. So I looked up Arcturus on the internet, and I find that it's a star a little larger than our star, but it's older, and it's in its red star phase, meaning if you looked at it through a telescope, it appears red and yellow. Red on the outside and yellow on the inside, circles, And, and in my material, for example, the star that I'm drawn to is Betelgeuse, and that's in the constellation of Orion. It's in his right shoulder. Now, Arcturus is in the constellation of Bootes, which is in Taurus, the constellation of Taurus, the bull. But it doesn't matter. But anyway, eventually, the colors in Betelgeuse is also a red giant, and it has the colors at the moment of red and yellow. Somebody's making noise here. Excuse me. But anyway, so I eventually found that red and yellow is really connected to the right eye in Horus, the Egyptian god Horus. And if you look at the left eye in Horus, it's actually blue and cyan in color, which has the avatar colors, which connects back to the alien face down in Antarctica, which had cyan and blue colors down there. So it's the knowing on the left, and the left, by the way, in psychology, is the feminine side of yourself, and the right is your masculine side. In other words, Eve was born out of Adam's left side. So it's the feminine side that's informing the masculine side, if you will. So the seeing and the knowing of your left side is what connects you to the goddess, and her wisdom comes to you through her visions and images. And once you understand that, then the seeing of your right eye is renewed. It's updated, and your worldview changes the more you understand consciously the images that are being given to you. So that's my brief explanation, Jan, for that.
Wow.
Okay. I can make another little comment, just a little bit of information on that, those photographs you saw from the folk festival. This is not the Rolling Stones. This is not the Tool concert. This is a film as a folk festival. It's fairly big, but apparently the band, at least one of the photographs when it was taken, there was a blues band playing on the set. So the question would be, would there be some small blues band from who knows where that would have the technology to pull this off? You can see, some major band in a say where they've got 30 or 40,000 people or whatever, they've got the money for this technology. So that's just a thing that Brad had told me related to this photograph, that it was there was a blues band during one of the photographs that were taken.
Yeah, and that was my contention too, because that is extremely expensive technology, and it's expensive to cart around, and none of the bands that were there, I mean, they're all well known in a folk genre,
Yeah.
but none of those could afford that. And then he also said that he talked to the sound and light director, or one of the bigwigs who were doing all of the stage production, right away when he saw that first image, and asked, "Are you all doing anything?" And he was shocked. He said, "No, we're not."
Wow.
So I don't know if somebody was trying to play a trick on him. I really doubt it. I think it's real.
Yeah.
So that's just me. But
it is important to point out that image is on the internet, that you can actually find that image. So it's a mystery, but we love mysteries. So we'll leave it at that. Has anybody got any other comments, or does anybody wants to relate an encounter or story?
But before we leave off on that Sophia image, I would just say that, I think it was Debs that pointed out that the finger is off the screen, which makes sense that it would be just a very subtle thing. So if somebody, it would be respectful of people that weren't ready to accept this image, and that wanted to write it off as, projected by the organizers. But yet, if someone was to look closely, the fact that the finger is just slightly off would be for people like us that might be looking for authenticity or the origin. And the fact that the finger is off is not explainable, I don't believe.
Is that her index finger, by the way? Deb?
yes, it is. It's her, what would be her right index finger.
Yeah, that is.
So the right
that's
side is
extremely-
the right side is the male, right, archetype.
Yeah. So
the index finger is pointing down. I don't know. What do you get, Greg?
Well, it's just the index finger comes up so much in my stuff. I mean, it's incredible. But like you say, it's the right side, so it would mean she's pointing to incarnation. Effects from her realm, she wants to zap humanity with. Okay, in other words, that was the way I. But you weren't around earlier. I asked you a question, but I guess you left.
Yeah.
I was curious, when you had your experience with Charlie Red Star, I was wondering what colors did you actually see in the object?
It was basically red, dark orange to red. It resembled to me like a pulsing heart, because it was like a plasma object. That's the closest I can describe it. You couldn't see the edges because of the brightness of the object. The second night we saw it, when it came right at us, it changes. And that's the other thing, is when I look at objects, I sort of say, well, you never know. Because the second night it started as a flashing, almost like now they call these flash cubes, but back in the 70s, nobody was reporting them. And it was like a bouncing ping pong ball. It was bouncing around in the sky, this flashing thing. And as it got closer, the flashes got closer together. And then the second night it came and it reappeared as this sort of a red plasma object, but it had, as it made a turn to the left to go into the northeast, and it had this sort of a green glow on the back, just on a little bit on the back side of it. But it was basically just this, almost like the thing was alive. There was, it was all just one giant plasma light, which was longer than it was high. So you would interpret that it was some sort of, plane or saucer type thing. But that's basically what I saw. But then, as I said, I've seen so many different types. I saw the orbs at close range, within close enough where I was going to jump on the one. And I saw the one time it changed from an arc welding light, like a brilliant arc welding light, to a triangle that hovered over the car with these big giant 5 or 10 foot lights on them. And I'm not sure whether it was 3 objects or whether it was objects on a light or lights on an object. So that's the thing where when I look at the objects, I sort of interpret that we may be part of manifesting what we're actually seeing, because to me it was so many different types of objects. And when I look at experiencers reports, I often see this, that you almost never get the same object being described twice. It's almost like there's some sort of personal interaction that is involved in what people see.
Well, I would say what you experienced there, Grant, would be like a cartoon strip. The first image is the beginning of the story, and then the image transforms a little bit, and it gives you another glimpse as to how the story wants to proceed, and then it gives you another one. And so, if you sum them all up and you study the symbolism in them, it's telling you a brief story, maybe a big picture story.
Yeah.
But what interested me was the red, orange, or the possible even red, yellow, because I was just sharing with Jan about my understanding of red, yellow as being connected to Betelgeuse, which is a giant star that's red and yellow at the moment, but it will go supernova. And as it goes supernova, of course, it's just a brilliant white flash, kind of like your arc welding thing that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And a brilliant white flash means enlightenment. So that's another way to look at that. So it's like you were told a short story right up front in 1975, in my opinion.
Yeah. The other interesting thing that we talked here about the hologram that I can mention, and I think there's now some Shasta people. They may have had, like a lot of the people have had encounters with this kind of stuff. In the 2014, 2015, there was these 2 encounters in the Zendra with Antarel. And in 2014, I talked to most of the people. There were 7 people inside the Zendra. I talked to most of them. And basically what they described was a solid flesh and blood being 10 feet tall with a bicycle suit on, very muscular, sparks coming off his chest, long sort of silver type hair, very stern looking, and this sort of thing. Very physical type experience. But in the 2015 event, a lot of the same people that were in the 2014 event were in there, and they were describing a hologram. Particularly Paula Harris was saying it was a hologram. I could see the trees through it, whatever. And one of the witnesses that I interviewed, we were never allowed to release his interview, but he was a guy 24 years in the U.S. Navy, was an architect in Los Angeles, really didn't want himself outed, but gave me this 2-hour interview where he described what was going on. And he said, in 2015, he said, it was not a hologram. I was there. I saw it. I could see his face. I could see the lines in his face. I was that close. He was adamant. So what you have is this situation where he's in the Zendra, and most of the people are describing a hologram of these figures where you can see the trees behind it, and he's seeing something completely different. So I was just wondering how many people have seen these hologram type images where it's sort of like part in that world, part in this world. And I think that was, and I'm trying to flash back to this woman figure that was seen at Shasta. I think there's 3 people that reported seeing her, and I'm not sure whether people were talking about the hologram there or whether it was a solid type figure.
Who was seeing it? Was it a man or a woman seeing the woman?
I believe it was all men.
Yeah, you see, that's central to Jung's idea of we experience our countersexual side as the intermediary between worlds that communicate information to us from the other world. So I remember, I think it was Ray who shared her experience. Was it the 219 or 218 Shasta, where she encountered, she was in a tube and this pixie dust or fairy dust was flowing down over her in this tube, and 30 feet up, she saw some figures standing on a white platform, and they were dressed in white garments with gold around their collar, and a man was there, and he began to speak to her. So that would be like what Jung would say, her animus, or her countersexual side is the intermediary, her guiding spirit.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was 2019. She described that.
Yeah.
The pixie
Very
dust is
interesting.
something that is reported quite often. There, she described this sort of like sparkly, and I think Kim's not here, but Kim described this. They were talking about this where you see this sort of sparkly light. There was a person I remember in the 2015 event. No, 2014 event, where he's there. He's a business executive out of Phoenix. And what happens is they get invited. What they do is they have a circle. All the people are doing the mantras and stuff, trying to raise the vibration. And what they'll do is they'll take 7 people out of the circle to take them to the Zendra, which is across a field. They have to walk across this field. So this business executive was there, and he had driven one of the people in the Zendra there, but he wasn't invited to the Zendra. So he's going along, and what happened was he was carrying this chair. And Paula Harris, who had been involved in both, was sort of very upset. She was didn't want to go. She was very unstable. And so this guy takes this chair along, and they go across this field in the middle of like pitch darkness. And he tells a story where they're told in Spanish to go back to the circle and continue to do the mantra. And he says, I'm sitting here and I realize this is going on, and I sort of pretend I really don't know what Spanish is all about. So he said, I knew I didn't have the authority by the beings to go into the Zendra, but he said, I really didn't hear them say go back to the circle. So he had the chair, and they had sort of moved off to go to this Zendra. They're walking in the dark, and he still got this chair. So he said, oh, I think I'll just sit here in this chair. And so he sits in the chair in the middle of this field. So he's halfway between the group that's doing the mantras and the meditation and all this stuff, and where this Zendra is opened up on the edge of this forest. And he describes very clearly, he says it's like the ground lit up. And in the 2019 Shasta event, they described the same thing. Marcel describes this, and I think Jeff also described this, where the ground sort of lights up and there's these lights coming off the ground. Almost like there's this transition that's taking place between one vibration and another vibration, and this light will appear and they will come into the light. And I remember this this business executive saying it was the strangest thing, because it's this pitch darkness, and he said suddenly there's these sparkles of light in the tree, and this light where the ground sort of lights up. So maybe someone has some of these kind of encounters where it's almost like it's like a portal or a dimension is opening up, and it starts with this, what Ray is talking about, this sparkling of light, and this things change, and then the being comes in through this change of this light and the sparkles and this kind of thing.
Well, Grant, my local Kansas City group had that experience just last Saturday at RCE5. And it sounds like it's textbook what you're talking about. We did some extra processes. Some of them are the ones that we did when Kimberly led us through them, some Kundalini breathing processes and so forth. Back at the retreat in Wisconsin this summer, we did that. We did chanting, and we all got in a tight circle, stood around and held each other around the waist, a very tight circle, and ohmed did an ohm wave for a long period of time. Now there was very thick cloud cover. It was raining part of the time, but we started getting flash bulbs through the clouds. The clouds were several thousand feet thick. So that was extraordinary. But then we started seeing that shimmering wall of sparkling light, and then it came down to the ground and was all around us. And at that time, it started raining really hard, and it was about 11 o'clock. And we had 8 new people that night, and 6 of them, I said, let's take a comfort break and we'll move to the shelter. We were at a park, and we'll go finish our evening in the shelter. And at that time, 6 of the 8 new people left. I think they felt they had all they could handle, probably, which was great. We moved to the shelter, and after our break, we did it again. We did those processes again, and we became so coherent. And because of the steel ceilings in that shelter, it was like a huge resonating chamber. And the ohm was just overwhelming. And soon we saw that shimmering, it was like a shimmering wall of light. And it came in and came all around us and all through us and then onto the ground. And then the next thing we knew, everything had changed. It felt, our environment still looked a lot the same, but there were tons of insects and frogs singing, and the pattern was way faster than it was before. You could hear the rain, but it sounded different. Our voices sounded different, almost like we were in a compressed chamber. And then we realized that we had probably jumped frequencies or been transported to a craft that we had remote viewed that was over us all night long. And so, but that happened, and we were there for about 2 hours. My own feeling is, if someone like a park ranger would have come up like he had earlier in the evening, if he'd have come up there, he would have seen an empty shelter. I truly believe our physical presence was not there anymore for that time. And our bodies felt different. We were all feeling extreme temperature change. It got very cold, but the temperature didn't drop, but at 2 degrees the whole evening in the physical reality. And then suddenly we were back, and we were back in the regular environment, and everything had flipped over. It's almost like they created a holodeck for us, an artificial environment that looked like ours, so we wouldn't be afraid through that experience. But it happened after that sparkly thing came in and then settled around the ground around us. That was an extraordinary experience.
Deborah, I couldn't help but keep flashing back to how lightning strikes. Are you familiar with how lightning strikes?
Well, yeah, it comes from the ground, actually, doesn't it? And spreads.
Yeah, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Mm-hmm. And so it's initiated on the earth first,
Mm-hmm.
and then the sky above reacts and sends down the lightning bolt, right? And so the dynamic you just explained was a union of heaven and earth. It would be the way. It's a union of the opposites. So yeah. Your little group, triggered the event by trying to make contact from the earth with a higher being, your higher self, and higher self responds with a flash of lightning or lighting and whatever phenomena followed to let you know, yeah, we're listening,
It's all okay. Yeah. It was a beautiful experience. We were altered, and I haven't been able to go back through the week, but several of my team have gone back out there every night and done more experiments out there. We plan on going again, next week, because it's just it's too compelling to let go of. So I'll let you know how it turns out.
That's the early phase of the journey, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But eventually you realize you can just sit in your living room or in a sacred place in your house, and this phenomena will occur within the vessel of your psyche and your imagination, and will play out there, and in a much more robust and more compelling series of images and so on that will flesh out a storyline of consciousness that will really get your ball rolling.
Yeah.
Gregory.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
Gregory, can you hear me?
Who is this?
Gregory, this is Alfred. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Where are you? Oh, here you are. No,
It's kind of like that clip that I sent you about in my meditation room with that energy and the orb coalescing, and then that being coming through. I think you got that clip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alfred's talking about, we exchanged some emails and a phone call since our last rabbit hole meeting, and he shared a very interesting clip of a video of a light being that appeared in his meditation room. He has a whole room devoted in his house to this big meditation room. I guess you have shamanic altars in there and carpets on the wall and all that stuff. Is that right?
It's a Vedic puja table, yes, with Persian rugs.
Yeah. Anyway, so he photographed this. I mean, it is amazing. Is there a way he can play that here? Do you have the video?
It's on my phone. I'm on my home computer, so it's not on here. But I'd sent Grant some data too, and I just got an email from you, Grant, that you're going to get in touch with me. But that wasn't one of the videos I sent Grant. The video I sent Grant was of the ship and the land. It's much better on the actual flash drive than it is me putting my phone to the computer. But
yeah, I have the video. I don't know if are people interested in seeing the video. We could.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
It's the sounds that interest me the most.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't sell it short, Alfred.
No. It's an experience.
I mean, this is you talk paranormal stuff. I mean, this is really paranormal stuff.
Grant, did you have a chance to view that, Grant, or not?
I have not had a chance to view it yet. No.
Okay.
Yeah, when you have a chance, take a look at it. I'm going to send you some more data that you might find fascinating. If we do have an interview, we could discuss.
Yeah, we'll do an interview, and you can also maybe queue up some for the group. Maybe next time we have it, so that you can maybe take over the screen like Greg did and show some of this stuff.
Yeah, Greg, I sent Greg probably 14 things, limited things of 5 years of research that. I think Greg was more than impressed with this information. I mean, beings in my house. One of them looked like the anaconda being that was found in Chile. The face was similar, but this one obviously was alive, not dead. Just very, very odd things that have occurred since the contact of the ship that came into the land in 2015, and it's accelerated exponentially. So
now you got everybody wanting to see it.
well, Gregory has it, so maybe he can tell.
Well, hey, give me a chance here. I'm looking at. My God, it was like a hurricane rainstorm you sent me.
I know.
All these emails. There's 19 of them here. I'm trying to figure out which one it is in.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find a photograph that Jeff sent of the wall. Have you got that one, Debs? We can maybe show that later. The wall. Have you got the wall photo?
Yeah, I was just going to say that did happen to us at Big Arb this summer too, with Jeff and Marcel and Kimberly and all them. So let me go look for that.
Yeah, I'm looking. I can't find it. That's a pretty bizarre thing. That one.
And in the meantime, Madeline has a question for Greg.
Okay, Maddie, go ahead.
I can't hear her.
I don't think she has her
Desta can turn her mic on.
Her mic's on. Madeline?
Maddie.
She was just here.
Maybe she just left.
Okay. Well, that's probably better. I'm not good at multitasking at 80 years old, so.
I'm younger. I'm still having trouble. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, I don't worry about it. I got all kinds of free passes for my lapses. Well, but maybe we should move on, and I'll let you know when I find it. How's that?
Okay. And
Okay.
same with Deb's.
Yeah,
Anybody
same
else got
here. I'm
something
just
they wanna talk?
looking.
Could I ask a question? If somebody could witness these sparkles, if they could describe that a little bit in more detail.
Well, I'd be happy to describe it. Anybody else wants to, that's fine too.
Yeah, the only way that the guy described it to me, the business executive, he said it was like Disneyland, like watching Disney. Remember how it used to start the show, the Disney show, where just like almost like a special effect thing, sparkles all over the screen. That's how he described it to me.
Oh, okay. The reason I ask is because I have a reoccurring theme where when I get very, very excited, and I'll go for a walk because I just can't, there's just too much energy. I will get synchronous with my thoughts, these sparkles that will, what I would describe them as almost as a jumbo sparkler that would just ignite, say 15 feet above me, maybe 15 feet to my right. Usually, I guess I don't know if it's always from the right. It'll just appear out of thin air and it will be moving. So maybe about 18 inches long, maybe 2 feet long, and it will just move in kind of an arc to the left for about maybe 30 feet, and then it just disappears. And I don't know if that's similar to what you guys are talking about. I don't know what it is.
That's kind of how it was for us the other night. It's almost like a long strip of clear material with sparkling lights attached to it, and the wind is moving it, and it kind of moves from one side of the horizon to the other. And that's what it did in the first half of our CE5 event. And then at the second half, it came in from the north and was coming like this, and it came towards us, but it literally came into the shelter and was moving around us, and then it settled to the ground. Wow. So yeah. So I'm going to share one picture that Jeff took, if I can do that. Oh, I'm doing the wrong thing again. I'm sorry.
No
I'm
problem.
still trying to figure this out. Stop. Stop. Let's see. Try it again. I may have to go back and save it to something else. I'm sorry. So guys, hang on just a second. I will.
Okay,
Yeah.
Maddie's back, and Grant Enrique's here as well.
Oh, Enrique, welcome.
Okay, let's see if I can do this.
These bands, these curved bands, that's what you see in the video that Alfred sent me. And by the way,
Oh, there it is. There it is. There. Look at this. That's pretty spectacular.
And now I will. I have to caveat this. This is not fog. This is not fog at all. There was no fog. Jeff said something about it just as I was going to say something about it. And I said, can you take a picture? And he said, I'm already photographing. So he was coming from a different vantage point than I. He was standing up, I think, taking photographs.
Yeah.
But this was all on one whole side of the area where our group was in circle that night.
Yeah, I get that in my room.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
This is in Wisconsin, right?
This was at Big Arb, Wisconsin. Yeah. So,
wow, very interesting.
and this was pitch black, by the way. He took it with one of those great Sony cameras that, you know.
I think he interpreted that to be, what, 12 to 14 feet high.
It was.
Yeah.
It was probably, 2.5 times the height of most of the people there. So it was very high. And it was shimmering. It was like iridescent. Here you don't see the individual tiny sparkling lights, but there were at times just millions of tiny sparkling lights, not fireflies. Number one, it was way too cold for fireflies that night. We had our Arctic gear on. It was very cold. So that's it.
Thank you for that. That's fantastic.
Thanks. Cool.
Hi, guys. This is Maddie.
Hi, Maddie.
Hi. I just wanted to ask Greg a quick question. If you guys don't mind me butting in a little bit, because I'm at work and I'm going to have to get off the phone
Okay.
in just a second. So, Greg, a while ago, you mentioned when we were talking about index fingers, you said you had so much research on that. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, so going back to the Shasta event this year, when I was having pain in my hand, and I finally located where the pain actually was in the base of my palm, at the base of my thumb. But the pain I was truly having in the beginning for at least a day and a half was my right index finger. But there was nothing wrong with my right index finger, and it didn't matter how I moved it or what I squeezed, or there was nothing wrong with my finger. So I was wondering, the pain indicating through my right index finger, what would that mean to you? Because I'm still trying to figure out. And they're making me really fight for this, what was downloaded from Vahid to myself.
Yeah, the big thing in my stuff, Madeline, is the use of the jhana mudra. And it's where, like I'm showing here, I see,
Yes.
Where the tip of the thumb touches the tip of the index finger. And that's called Jnana. And that's the wisdom mudra. And the thumb is the goddess. It's the world soul. It's the anima mundi, the soul of the world. And the index finger is the individual soul. And so when you let those two fingers touch, you are now mind melding with the goddess. And she is sending you information. And that could even include healing. And so it's important to pay attention to your body sensations in meditation or during any kind of experiential setting, because those sensations the goddess can trigger in your body. It's like a calling card saying, I'm here. And you need to understand the symbolism, what this means if you have discomfort in the joint of your left thumb, which is the feminine side, the goddess side, and if you have discomfort in your index finger, which is the right side, meaning the goddess is trying to incarnate information from her realm, which is, in the hidden dimensions or in the other world, in the unconscious, whatever you want to say, and into your consciousness as an incarnation of new knowing, new ideas, new consciousness. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A question maybe now for Enrique, because you just came in. I don't know if you were here when we showed a photo of a woman in a veil that was taken at a folk festival here in Winnipeg. It looked like a holographic image, and they were referring to the people who had seen the female at Mount Shasta. You were one of the people. Can you maybe describe what the vision that you saw and your interpretation of female figures appearing? What's your take on that?
I'm trying to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you can hear you now. Yep.
Yeah, I haven't seen the picture. I just entered a few minutes ago. I was listening. Well, the description of the woman I saw this time this is interesting, because this time I saw the woman as kind of like a triangle, like a white triangle, and at the top I could see her face, but the robe, whatever she was using, which makes her look like a nun, it fall like in a triangular shape, and it was very, very white. And every time I saw her, she was with snow, like the snow was falling before she arrives, and then she enters in the vision. In the past, I've seen also the presence of a woman in Shasta, but wearing a blue robe, and not in the shape of a triangle, but a regular female figure. This time it was really like a triangle, and it made me feel like it was a kind of like a symbolic representation of Mount Shasta with the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. I remember Vahid had said, I asked him about it, and he was talking about, because he had seen it, and I can't remember who the third, maybe it was it Mario? There was three people that saw her. Right? Who was the other third one? Because Vahid said she was looking at him, and that's when he figured he had to do something. She had bigger eyes, and she was sort of staring at him, but she didn't really see anything on. I asked about whether he saw anything on the head, because a lot of times you'll get these people will talk about the hooded beings at the end of the bed, which always seem to be like the wisdom beings. The one guy from NASA, he's an engineer at NASA, who gets the downloads, the medical downloads, and he talked about this hooded figure, this sort of a wisdom figure. So, but Vahid said he didn't see her. She had like blonde hair, but he didn't see anything on her head. But it's an interesting what Greg brought up about. You see the opposite, that Ray saw a male will see a female, that sort of thing.
Well, she was covered from head to toe, and I could only see in the beginning the face. At some point, I saw her hand, but I tend to believe the vision I was having was kind of like a symbolic vision, because when she stretched her hand, I could see like USB ports in her hand. Her hand was covered first with a kind of like an armor, metallic armor, but when she did this, I could see the palm and the holes for the flash drives. And she was talking about communication or creating a link between our minds and hers. So I realized that was a symbol for engaging or exchange, right?
Yeah, I would say, hands are symbolic of what creates consciousness. So that would, for me, be an encouragement to keep a good journal of your experiences, try to amplify on them in the aftermath with images from the internet or wherever, and keep a good journal tracking all your stuff, because it will be referred to as time goes on, and it will become richer and richer. So if you're doing all that, I don't know why she would emphasize that again to you. But by the way, the head covering is a common feature too. It means that she operates not out of the knowing of the upper realm. She operates out of the knowing of the feminine principle. Not the masculine, which the upper three chakras in our body would be the masculine, and which we have totally emphasized for 2,000 years now. But she represents the lower three chakras. And this is where by the way, the triangles come into play. Upward pointing triangles or downward pointing triangles. Now I know Rama has made a Seal of Solomon on somewhere in one of the areas there on Mount Shasta of an upward and downward pointing triangle. But she would represent a downward pointing triangle. And it's generally black, and it's connected to the shape of her pubic hair. It's that graphic, it's that meaningful, it's that instinctual, and it's that irrational aspect of knowing, not our logos or rational knowing. So all these things can be said about it. But the emphasis, I think, is always like she's like a Muslim woman, in other words. You know how the Muslim women all cover their heads. So she is that kind of sacred wisdom feature or consideration, stuff like that.
Enrique, hello, Enrique. Can I ask you, did she look completely human to you? Did she have normal looking human eyes, or were they larger? Were they colored? Were they anything like that? Or did her face look human?
I could not see the features like with so much detail. It was a mental vision. It was a clear vision of details. It's like if they emphasize on the details, I can see them. If not, it's a general thing. I remember clearly the snow coming down, then the figure floating towards us, being like a triangle, white triangle. I remember her face, it was definitely a female. But I would not say the eyes were this color. No, it was female features, fine features, pretty face, but that's it. I couldn't say anything else about the face. And the hand, I remember it was covered with an armor in the external side, but in this side it was uncovered, and there were the ports for the exchange. Or, yeah.
Yeah, so seems like almost the hands were more of the focus, more of the focal point of the vision than anything else, almost.
Or the snow. I don't know. But
Yeah.
sometimes I notice that the shapes, like in Rama, the shape of a triangle, I receive it before in mental images, like representing the balance between physical, mental, and spiritual. So the triangle in itself represents a person that has created that kind of equilibrium in life. And when it's crowned by the sun, it's like a person that is reaching a state of consciousness that is expanded. So I've always associated the triangle with the male Buddha in meditation, but this time it was a female triangle. It was a female energy. And that was really interesting because the feeling was like motherhood, like she was embracing us or she was there to receive us. It was a different feeling.
And just to add a point to that, Mario also saw the triangle when you picked up on him being the GPS when he went up. That's what he was looking for, correct? He was looking for that triangle. The tree had fallen over, forming the triangle.
Yes, Mario. I think the first day we were in Shasta, he had this vision at night. I think he was taken into Shasta and he saw in the mountain triangles coming towards him and the way we were going to work with those triangles or forms of energy. And actually we did that work the night of Saturday at 12 at the top of the mountain. We did that. His vision of the dream, we practiced it in physical form when we were in the mountain.
And the other thing we might want to add, because Maddie's still here before she gets fired, you saw the sort of the ports in the hand like a download thing, and Maddie does grab Vahid's hand the next day in the group, and that he got it in his right hand, which I think Jeff even describes which finger the spark came off of. But so she has that pain in her hand, then she grabs and she gets this download, which I think people have to realize there's a second part to the story of where the hand does fit in. So Maddie, can you maybe tell that little story?
Yeah. Okay. And I'm sorry, guys, if a patient comes in, I'm going to have to say goodbye, but there's nobody right here. And isn't that perfect?
Okay.
So, yeah. And in the context of this Shasta event, and I'm trying to constantly put all this into perspective. I have done hands-on healing for many years, and that's mostly my background. And all this antenna stuff. I mean, I communicate, yes, when I do healing, so that I do communicate, but this is a whole different, whatever's happening is different for me. It's another branch, another path. So I'm really trying to figure it out. So during the, I got communications before the event. I had communicated some of it with Enrique, but not everything. A lot had to do with triangles and movement. upper triangles, lower triangles, basically the Merkaba, our body Merkaba, different spins in different directions, and those spins separating from each other and making a bridge. And did not know what that was going to have to do with the weekend or where that was going to go. So during the weekend, at some point after Friday, we went down to the falls, I believe, after the first time we went to the doorway, before the group went down to the doorway. I thought maybe I had hurt my hands on the rocks because I went down into the water and I was doing a lot of climbing with a heavy backpack on. But my hand didn't hurt all the time. But when it did hurt, the pain would shoot down my right index finger to the point where I'd almost want to holler. And it definitely would catch my attention, but I couldn't figure out why, because I couldn't find out anything wrong with my hand. And it wasn't until the second day, and this wasn't the whole time my hand hurt, it was just periodically, almost to get my attention again. And I don't know why I was so distracted. I should know better because I do energy work. I know about the body parts. Greg, I do pay attention left side, right side, but we're hard-headed sometimes. So when the Sunday, when we were debriefing in the circle, I actually ended up sitting on Vahid's right side. And he kept talking about the orb, on his shoulder when he was relating. And I kept staring at his hand because it's like, I need to put my hand on his hand. I don't know why. And I kept getting that for at least a day and a half. You should go because I didn't know anything had happened to him on that hand until very early Sunday morning. I got up really early Sunday morning and I was walking around, hardly anybody was up. And actually Grant was sitting in the circle. And I went down to talk to him right after I found out that something had happened with Vahid in his right hand. So we packed up everything. I was aggravated, I have to say, packing up my tent. I felt like something wasn't finished. I didn't understand why my hand was still hurting, and I was trying to pack up everything with one arm, basically. And finally, when everything was done, I was like, I have to go see Vahid, and they were close by. So I walked up to him and I said, Vahid, I know this is kind of weird, but I need to put my hand on your hand where you got sparked. And I did. And it was more of a crossing the palms with the base of the palm to the base of the palm. And I just looked at him. And the weirdest, oddest, his eyes literally started to glow. Like someone gets ready to cry, and the tears well up with all the water. It looks like they want to cry, but they weren't tears. And I was staring at him, and this energy just came up from the bottom of my feet. And this has happened to me. I thought this was going to be similar to 3 other times when this intense energy has gone through my body to the point where all I can do is double over in waves, like you're giving birth. I thought this was going to happen again, and it's always very embarrassing when it's in front of people. But it didn't go that far. But the emotion came up and the tears came up, but I had no information connected to it. I thought it only lasted not that many seconds, but Ray was standing there and she said it actually lasted a few minutes. And when it was done, it was done.
Wow. For people that are maybe a little confused, maybe Desta, if you can do me a favor, can you put your email address in the chat box? We have finished the report from Mount Shasta. I think we transferred it to a 6x9 format. I think it's 120 pages long, and it will detail exactly what happened on that weekend. A lot of stuff happened, and you'll hear these various little pieces of the testimony of who saw what, when, how all this all happened. The report is finished. I think Desta finished it yesterday or day before. So anybody that wants a copy of the report, we will send it. We're going to put it in the Mount Shasta Facebook group, but not everybody here probably is linked into the Mount Shasta Facebook group.
Well, Madeline, thanks for sharing. That's very interesting that it was a man that instituted the transfer of energy for your healing. Maybe it's that connection to the animus being your intermediary somehow, especially your what you saw in his eyes. That's very interesting.
And I thought too it was significant what you were saying about men see the female, females see the men, because both Ray and I are seeing what we call the white hooded male figures inside of the mountain. Ray and I had this exact same visuals of when we were speaking to the beings we met individually. They were male, white, and what she saw also in, I guess it was Ascendra, after everyone had left. Same beings for Ray and I, and we're female, so we're seeing male, and the men are seeing female.
Right.
Although,
Yeah.
Enrique, to add a point to that, though, Enrique may be able to enlighten on this. The women that Enrique from your group from LA, some of them were seeing a female figure in the cave, correct? Moving around when we were doing that meditation inside the cave.
Yes. I remember one of the accounts. It was Sylvia. When I touched the wall with the back of my head, I saw her being like sucked into this vortex. And later she approached me and told me that she was being taken inside. And I think she had a meeting with the being. Yeah.
It was a female being?
I don't recall that. I remember she received a message, but I don't recall if it was a male or a female.
I recall there was two of them. It was in the circle on the Sunday morning where they were talking about, she had a ball. She was holding a ball in her hands or something, and she was walking.
That was in the caves.
When you were in the cave and you were saying, "Who are we? Who are we? And that's when it happened. When you were saying that, "Who are we?" or "Who am I? Who am I?" And she said, "I think it was a woman with a ball." I didn't really pick it up on the tape very well, but I think there's two of the Latino women that picked up this woman walking around.
Yeah, well,
in the cave, many people felt the presence of a female figure there, but I mean, in the wall, I don't remember exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Enrique, I just wanted to ask too, with your feeling that this might be symbolic, the female figure that you saw might be symbolic of Mount Shasta. Can you say more about that? Can you say what you think about what that message is to you?
Well, in Peru, in the tradition of the Andes, the people believe in mountains as sentient beings, and they are like protectors of a region. They call it apus. So Shasta is considered to be an apu in North America, and it's not just a mountain. It's in the perspective of the Andean people, is actually a sentient, intelligent being that can communicate and protect and give you information. So I don't doubt that it can communicate through symbolic imagery, through messages that we can channel. And I think at some level we have that exchange with Shasta, because it's not just the image. At some point we do practices to connect with the mountain, with the forest. So we embrace the trees, we hug the trees, and we feel information coming from the trees. And it's very enlightening for people to see how they choose randomly a tree, but actually the tree is telling the story of themselves. So we do that practice always when we finish the work in Shasta, and for many it's like the most important moment, because they see their own reflection in the mountain.
Mm-hmm. And are most of the mountains in Peru female in nature, or does it depend on the mountain, the quality of energy being male or female?
Actually, when you have an apu, the apu has a male and female side. So if you see Shasta, you're going to notice the female is the big one, and the dark one at the side, that's the male.
Woman's on top.
Yes, always.
Yeah, well, no, well, the point is they're all connected to the earth. I mean, you're talking, trees are things of Mother Earth, as is Earth Mother Earth. So behind the male figure that may be, we call in psychology the animus, behind that figure is the goddess. And And that's reflected in the fact that Madeline's figure, for example, was hooded. The male figure was hooded. And he's showing in that way that he's hooded like the goddess is hooded, that she wears a cloak over her head. In other words, he's more of a representation of the eros side of the masculine, not the logos side of the masculine. And so he's an intermediary. But trees, by the way, are very interesting symbolically, because the knowing that is in the feminine principle is in Germany, they refer to the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system in our bodies, which is autonomous. It's not under our control logically or through our brain, the CNS. The CNS is what we have access to, but the VNS is involuntary. It runs our heart, it runs our digestion system, and so that's the realm of the goddess. And so she's connected to the VNS, and that in Germany and their medical establishments, they refer to that sympathetic parasympathetic system as the vegetative nervous system. And that's what gets triggered in Madeline's hand. Is something suddenly touches her in a certain way, and it's a communication from the goddess. That's her realm. She's in charge of it. We're not. And so it kind of all ties together when you talk about it long enough and read it about it and study it a little. I've been at this 40 years from this point of view, so I'm kind of steeped in it, in this way of knowing.
Okay, one more. Matthew has a question here for Greg. Then I got a question for Greg, but I want to just finish up on this. Enrique mentioned the triangle, and you'll see in the report we show when Enrique first talked to us Friday evening, he basically said that he really didn't have any sort of plan for the weekend, but he did get some sort of images on his way from Los Angeles to Shasta. And one of them was this figure of the triangle with the circle on the top of the triangle. And that appears in a coffee cup. We described this whole event after the event to Katerina Castillo, who was going to come, but she bought the wrong ticket. She bought for the wrong day, so she didn't show up. But she finds this in her coffee cup, and it's absolutely identical. So this triangle kept appearing, and Mario provided me the images. He drew the images for me of the triangles that he saw. He got these images of triangles. So it was sort of a predominant signal over the weekend, was this triangle with the circle on top of it. So let's go to Matthew for a second, then anybody else wants to jump in. Matthew Roberts had a question for Greg. Matthew, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here, sorry.
Yep.
So my question was, so I went through this nirvana or awakening experience, and I hear a lot of people talking about their experiences, and we're trying to kind of get caught up in what I feel is like maybe a bit of minutia about these experiences, because I feel like these experiences that people have are, they're for them. They're for the individual. And I kind of feel like I had to interpret my experiences on my own, and I didn't necessarily come to some of the same conclusions that you do about some of these experiences. And I'm wondering, how important do you feel like that minutia is? Because I feel like the most important thing for me was just being able to reconcile things in my own mind. And that's what brought about this nirvana. I'm not sure if maybe that's a similar experience to what you had or not. I don't know. Maybe you can talk to that a little bit.
Gee, I'm not quite sure what the question is.
Well, yeah. So I guess, we're talking about, the goddess and the various parts of the body. I didn't have, I didn't need to know that for my nirvana or awakening experience. Do you feel like that's important for that, or no? I mean,
well, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, no, it's a work in progress, right? I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. I mean, I've been at this 40 years, and And looking back over that, it's taken a long time to put all the jungle and the jumble and it's like you start out and like my first thing I saw during my awakening experience was this big, huge mirror in the blackness, and something hit it and it just shattered it into a million pieces, which went flying everywhere. And I think that was an image for my worldview, that it was being shattered, and everything that's ensued since then has been an attempt to build a new worldview that was because a lot of the old worldview doesn't apply anymore. So it's a huge work in progress. So I would just give yourself time.
As a related question to Greg, you got a PhD in quantum physics. Have you ever discussed with other quantum physicists these kind of ideas, and have you gotten any positive response, or has it been many years since you've been in that field?
Well, it has been a lot of years since I've been in that realm, so to speak. Yeah, but I've interacted with Dr. Remo Roth, who studied extensively for 14 years, by the way. He's in Zurich, Switzerland, and he's a Jungian analyst. And he wrote 3 books recently, within the last 6 years. But he studied the writings of Wolfgang Pauli, who was a Nobel laureate in theoretical physics, that collaborated with Carl Jung for over 26 years and helped Jung formulate his theory on synchronicity and all this stuff. But anyway, yeah, so I interacted with Remo because he didn't know English. He's German, and eventually he picked up the language and he published all his books in English. And he gave me a nice acknowledgement for helping him get his works published. So yeah, I've been steeped in this, and so it's like my mentioning earlier to Juan about cosmology and the hidden dimensions. There's M theory. You can look it up. It's called M-theory on the internet, and it talks about an 11-dimensional universe that we live in. We're only aware of 4 dimensions. And Juan, as an adolescent with his popcorn man, was being told he was being visited by a being from another dimension, something that I hear in the UFO community, right? We begin to, some of us believe, well, they're ETs, and others say, well, they're interdimensional. Well, I have my experience says they're interdimensional, so that's where I'm at. But anyway, yeah. So I've stayed with it. Is that enough of an answer, Grant?
Yeah. A point related back to Matthew's question. I always, I'm doing a presentation where I talk about, like, people will say, and it's this idea that you manifest part of what you're seeing. So people will say, well, I saw grays. So I actually do a presentation where I take all the grays that people have seen, whether it's Betty Hill, Betty Andreasen, Whitley Strieber, and I start putting them one on top of another with a PowerPoint presentation. There is no 2 that look anywhere close to each other. It's sort of like you're impressing your view on what you're seeing. And the expression I like to always use is there's this whole controversy between John Mack, who most of his, when he looked at it, he saw it as a spiritual type thing that these people were encountering. And whereas Bud Hopkins saw it as, these intruders who are, destroying our world and just not very good guys. And at one point during one debate they had, I remember John Mack says, Bud says, it's very strange. You figure I'm the psychiatrist here. You figure I'd be getting all the crazy people that have all the problems. And in fact, you're getting all the real bad ones, and I'm getting all the spiritual ones. And he said, maybe, Bud, that has more to do with you and I than it does with the aliens. And so I always try to have this idea that whatever you see, it's almost like this. There's this story of the Zendra. When I interviewed all these people who were inside the Zendra, and Enrique may be able to confirm this or add to it, is that when I talked to these people, I said, what did you see? And they all basically sort of saw the same thing. But then I said, what happened? absolutely everybody had a different encounter. It was like they were in a completely different world than the person standing right beside them. They got different messages. It was a completely different world, and yet they were all standing in the same place looking at the same thing.
Yeah. Well, Grant, that's very interesting observation. I've heard you make it before many times, and you see, from a psychological point of view, when you see grays or you see aliens, you see these various things appear to you. These are parts of your own soul, okay, in various stages of integration or lack of integration. So the more humanized, like say a praying mantis looks, or the more humanized a gray looks, is a sure indication that that part of your soul is somewhat more integrated. And to the extent that it's primitive and unintegrated, well, then it looks like this foreign entity. That's the way depth psychology of Carl Jung would understand such things. And I think it's consistent to the experience that people are having. Everybody sees things according to their own level of psychic integration of their own wholeness.
Greg, I resent those 3 clips to you if you want to see if you can pull them up.
I was going to say, Alfred sent the clips. I found the one that of his light beam. So whenever we want to move to that, I have it ready. I'll try to bring it up and share and play the video.
Does anybody have something they want to start a new thing, or should we go to this?
I wanted to point to what you mentioned, Grant, about Sendras. We all agree that when we talk about Sendras, we are pointing at a doorway or some place where we can jump into a different reality, something like that. But Sendras in the Rama group in Peru, the experience of the Sendra was always identified as this field of energy that normally looks like a dome of light where you can enter and have the experience of exchanging with these beings or going through the portal into the reality of those beings. But it's always in the form of a dome, or most of the times. Sometimes you can see it as a little cloud concentrated in a specific location. It's always accompanied by ground lights, or the ground is lighting up, right? Like you guys described. And sparkles of light, but there is also sound. When the Sendra is strong, you can clearly hear kind of like bells at the distance. And even when the ships are really close to the Sendra, the sound of metal hitting the ground is very powerful, like a clang, and it really shakes you when that happens. So I've noticed here in the United States, in the north, when the field of the doorway is being formed, there is a difference. Here we have a wall of energy. And I've seen it in Shasta, which I've never seen it in Peru, let's say. But it's like, I tend to think that it's the culture or the language we use which triggers the way we experience the phenomena. And when this other friend was asking about enlightenment and why to point at the minutiae, the little things, it's because we need a language in common. So we can actually exchange and grow in the experience of a community. Enlightenment by myself or by yourself is very egotistical. It doesn't have anything to bring to the community. So either we live this as a group or we don't live it at all. So we definitely need a language. And the language is being created as we exchange, as we communicate the different symbols of our experiences.
Can I ask a question in relation to that? I know you have always talked about the filters, that you have to see things in terms of what your culture is and And even the idea that, you know, that Skinwalker Ranch, you've got these sort of, you know, dark figures, and you don't see that in the Shasta events or in Peru or anywhere like that. But I forgot what my question was.
The filter.
It happens to me all the time, Grant. Don't feel embarrassed.
Yeah. No, it was because Enrique, you started not being able to be. Oh no, I know what the question was. In terms of, you mentioned in this event, when this thing was happening, 10 people go up to the top of the mountain. You get the impression there's only going to be one person, and one person as support. So the question is, why, if you've got an event, my question to you is, why is the event happening to one person? Like you said, when the lights appeared on the mountain, you figured, I'm by myself, this may be the contact event. Why is that contact event singled out to one person?
Okay, let's say you and I are having this vision of this ship coming down. And what happened if when we both go to tell the story and you have a different version of it? Because that's what happened, Grant. I've seen it. I've been with other people in front of the same phenomena. And when you go tell the story, we have two different versions. And that happens because we are not sharing the same language of imagery and symbolic connection with reality. So maybe it's easier that you communicate a message when you are the sole witness of the phenomena. But there are levels to the experience. So that's why I decided I was going to leave that side of that phenomena in the mountain with witnesses, because I thought at that level we can all share the same or similar experience. But if it was receiving a message, I'm sure the message would have been distorted by our different perceptions of it.
Yeah. And you started, like, in terms of picking up the message, I remember you telling the story that you once wanted to be the antenna, and you were told, no, you're not the antenna. And you were sort of pointed to the guy. That you developed this over the years. This isn't something where you can actually sort of grow in this phenomena and understand it better and have better interaction with the phenomena by doing various practices, or how would you interpret that?
How do I interpret that?
In terms of your developing this practice, in terms of, like, you started very young meditating, and then you had, you know, this very dramatic experience with the book, but the fact was you really weren't the person you are today in terms of being able to pick up messages, and so there's that part as well, is you have the practice, as well as, it's not like you can walk into an event with a bunch of people and you're going to have if you're not ready for it, if you haven't done training, you may not have the experience that other people in the same group may have.
Yes, that's the truth. There was a preparation, and I think in the core of that preparation is to embrace yourself, to get to know yourself. As long as you are really open to know all your darkness and all your light, then you are able to get closer to the phenomena with a more wider perspective of what it is. I think I try to share that with the group whenever we have the meetings in Shasta, to open our minds, not just seclude the phenomena to the extraterrestrial exchange. It could be an interdimensional, it could be your own self in a higher realm, it could be so many things. But I think the ultimate meaning is not the encounter with extraterrestrials. It's actually discovering the truth of who you are. And that's a really hard work.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
By the way you run those groups, it reminds me of the gifts differing, and we're all called to different gifts. Some are good administrators, some are healers, and so on. And I learned that when I had, in the aftermath of having my experience back in 1976. And it was a very religious, spiritual experience. I was in Holy Trinity church in San Pedro, California at the time, and during Mass, when I suddenly had the experience of something touching my shins, and it looked like an orb with a little tail on it, like it was a huge teardrop with just a little tail. And anyway, I later understood it to be what they call the second baptism in the Holy Spirit, a Pentecostal thing. And I eventually wound up a year later going to Pentecostal prayer meetings. And boy, you want to see the gifts of the Holy Spirit working, and there's like 9 of them. You can read about it on Wikipedia if you look up Holy Spirit, gifts of the Holy Spirit. And they come in clusters of 3 of words of knowledge, 3 of prophecy, and 3 of healing. And the cluster that activated in me was prophecy. So, and these are only operative when you're in community. And so, when you're an individual doing your individual work at home, privately with yourself, those things aren't going to be operative. You know, you're now one-on-one, and it's called individuation. It's called trying to integrate your soul parts and become more whole by listening to what's being presented to you. So I just wanted to throw that in there if that helps give a perspective.
Okay. Anybody has something else they want to raise here?
I have a question. The fog-like thing we saw earlier, was that like the Zendra itself?
No. You're talking about the wall?
Yeah, that looked like fog.
Yeah, that was a wall that appeared in a CE5 event, which I guess is one of the questions I could ask here. How many people have CE5 events that they do? That was one that they were running in Wisconsin, but they said there was no fog. It was just that wall. They saw it as sort of a protection type thing that appeared. They saw it, and then this Jeff had special camera equipment, and he picked up this clearly it looks like a wall made out of fog, but there's not much explanation of what it is. I mean, in fact, that's the first one I've ever seen of something like that. Same as when we were showing you earlier those photographs of that girl that appears at that 2 different places, one in the day, one at night, at the rock concert, where this holographic woman appears in the middle of this rock concert thing. So it's almost, that's where you almost look at the UFO phenomena. The more I look at it, the more it looks like everybody sees something completely different. There really are no 2 objects the same. There are no 2 beings the same. And it's almost like symbolic. We're seeing things to give us messages, to give us things that really has, to me, that's why I do a lecture called The Theory of Wow, where I say, I don't think there's anything. They turn on the lights to make you go wow. They put crop circles to make you go wow. They put these walls to make you go wow. They make this woman appear. They make orbs appear, and all they're trying to do is wake us up, to get us to realize, that there's something more than what we are. And so when people I think they'll make the mistake when you're trying to find somebody who saw a UFO that looks exactly like yours. I think it's a waste of time. It's almost like it's so differing based upon what it is. It's almost like they do it different every time just to sort of mess with us, that they aren't really doing anything. They're not here to steal our gold. They're not here to do this or that. They're just here to deliver messages and wake people up.
Yeah, I was just curious because someone, I don't know who, someone said they saw the same thing in their room. And I don't know if I saw the same thing, but what I saw is I entered the consciousness state, and it was my room, but it was really foggy with like a green light emanating from it. I don't know if someone experienced that too.
A green light, you said, Hamra?
Not a dream. It's like...
a green light, you said?
Oh, yeah, green light. Yep.
Yeah. Well, green is the color of the Holy Spirit. That's what Jung always said. And if you look at the mystic, the woman, Hildegard, Von Flu or somewhere in Europe. She has all these paintings, and she talks about the Holy Spirit as being green, the blessed verdes, the blessed greenness.
I see Jeff is here. Jeff, can you add on the, you're the one that photographed the wall. Can you maybe describe?
Yes, as far as the wall goes, during CE5s, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm out in the woods right now. This is great, this meeting, or this media, the way we can communicate so easily. So as far as the wall goes, you know, I've seen these, usually they're walls of fog. I've seen them out in the desert. A lot of people have seen them out in the desert. I always associated those with the perimeter of a craft that is possibly hovering off the ground. So this particular case, though, up north in Wisconsin, this was, I could see it as a shadow. It kind of looked like a shadow. And I looked around to see if there could be something that could be creating that. Now, I had two cameras. One's a normal camera, one's an infrared. I took pictures with both of them. The funny thing is that it came in with infrared. It came in perfect. It looks kind of foggy or misty or whatever, but I perceived it as a shadow. In this particular case, with the other camera, the normal camera didn't pick it up at all. So, which surprised me a bit. I thought they'd both pick it up since I could see it.
So has this happened a lot, Jeff?
This happens with group CE5s. I haven't personally had that happen at my own CE5s, but with the larger ones, with the more experienced people, I see it all the time. These walls form, and sometimes they're just huge. I mean, they're hundreds of yards long, and usually they're about the height of this one that I got a picture of. You know, it's about 15 feet high. So
another thing that Jeff got, maybe I'll take over the screen here for a sec. I'll show another photograph Jeff got, which is another thing that seems to appear quite a bit here. Hang on, let me see if I can take over the screen here. Share. Can you see the screen? My screen?
Oh yeah, the
helicopter
yes.
with the UFO.
Yeah,
and there's a video that Jeff has on his YouTube channel where this orb object actually goes flying right past the helicopter, which I think I mentioned, Jeff and I were talking about it in Shasta, and that is really common. I mean, this idea of having a helicopter with an orb photograph in it is really, really common. And it's almost like, if you know, with the To the Stars thing, they're making this claim that the UFO shot down this helicopter in Italy, which is a total made up story, total garbage. But it's almost like when I put that up, a lot of people started sending photographs of helicopters with UFOs in the photograph, and there's got to be dozens of these photographs, which is pretty weird. Is why do you get these helicopters? So you start questioning: is it really a helicopter, and is it really an orb, and what's really going on here?
Yeah, well, you remember the crash, the Cash Lambert?
Yeah, Cash Landrum.
Yeah, Cash Lambert. Well, they had, 14 helicopters surrounding that octahedron UFO that towered in front of their cars. Yeah, and I think the helicopters, by the way, is symbolic for an insect. It kind of is a modern version of an insect, just for our consumption as a modern species or modern man. But so it's the pull towards the instinctual way of knowing, or the feminine way of knowing, the irrational way of knowing. That is what ties it together for me. But Grant, I'm going to have to leave a little bit. But did you want me to try to bring up Alfred's video?
Yes, do that right away. And then
I'll give it a try, and if I disappear, you'll understand that I wasn't successful.
And then maybe Jeff can talk about Jeff is a photographic guy. He's got a lot of he picked up a portal type thing in the back at Mount Shasta 2 years ago. He's got some pretty interesting photographs. Maybe we'll have to get him to show some of his photographs.
Yeah. Also, I got a portal that opened in Joshua Tree, where there's beings that were forming just maybe 10 feet away from the light. So
So if
I
you
don't have that. I don't have that. I can't post that right now.
okay, so the next time you'll be first up. We'll put you first up, and you can take over the screen.
Okay.
Next presentation that we do, you can show those because you've got some pretty interesting photographs I've seen.
Yeah, I'll have to figure out how to do that with this medium. So,
Yeah. Okay.
all right. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah. And the helicopter thing is almost like it. I don't know how common it is, but it's pretty common when you talk to an experiencer, that has had encounters, or whatever, and then you say, "Have you ever had a helicopter?" And they go, "Oh yeah, but that's just a helicopter." And they think it's the government chasing them around. It's almost so common, it's unbelievable. Like, and they're usually like 50 feet over houses. A guy by the name of Tony, who's been to a couple of these events, these things I host here. And he's got them like 50 feet over his head. He's got like piles of them. And he's got the same thing. He's got the UFOs in the photograph. And so you're saying, well, what's the chance you can have a helicopter 50 feet over your head with a UFO in it?
Right.
Makes you really wonder what's going on.
Yeah, I was when I did that video of that helicopter, I had the camera set for, I can't remember if it was 30 frames a second or 60 frames a second. So when you check it frame by frame, there are lots of pictures of that object. And
Yeah.
I figured out that it's moving at the minimum. It's moving at 550 miles an hour.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's a unique. It'd be interesting if you can show that because it's on your YouTube channel, but it'll be pretty hard for people to get to your YouTube channel right now.
yeah, one of the easy ways is just if you want to see the movie, is just type in movie ET2.
Okay.
Do that in the search; it'll come right up.
Good. Yeah, that's quite an impressive video. And as I said, you got what kind of camera equipment? You've bought special camera equipment for CE5 events. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. It's not an expensive camera. It's a Sony A6000, which there's now, I think they got it's up to the 6500. There's that many generations removed, so they're quite inexpensive. And you have to just have the sensor, a lens removed from the sensor and a different one put on.
Okay.
So it's a conversion. It's called an IR, full spectrum IR conversion. So there's several companies that do that, but just go with a reputable company and you'd be good. And the other thing you got to watch out for with those is with different lenses, you can get a lot of lens flare. And the lens flare is quite obvious with it.
Yeah.
But so you got to get the right lenses. It seems like the more elements the lens have, the more susceptible it is to lens flare. So.
And you're doing CE5s where? Yeah, we had Deb's here earlier. She has a CE5 group in Kansas City. Where are you? Where's your CE5 group?
Deb's was with us up north when we got a picture of that wall.
Yeah, but you've got a different. Are you? You're not with the Kansas City group.
Right. I'm I'm in the Horicon, Wisconsin area.
Okay.
So I don't really have a name for the group.
Okay.
But,
and Michigan has a group too, right?
Yep.
And San Diego has a group. There's some of those people there. So for anybody that might be listening who may want to join in, those are some of the groups. Is there any others you know of, Jeff, around the country where people do regular CE5 events?
I have a group, Grant.
Okay, where is that?
It's in the Midwest, in Omaha.
Oh, in Omaha, cool.
Yeah.
And
my group's gone from 15 to 1, and anymore I don't have to go to the land to do it. I could just do it from my house, and they come to my house.
Well, if are you ready to go, Greg? Because we got a new story start forming here.
Actually, I'm not.
Okay.
I think Alfred sent me the wrong files again or something, but we'll have to do this another time.
Okay, we'll set it up
Grant.
for next. Yeah.
Our friend from Manchester is here, Brigitte, or from Liverpool, sorry. I think she has her hand up.
Brigitte, hello. Brigitte, I see your hand up. I see your mic is on.
Hello, Brigitte. Hello?
Oh, maybe this is her first time on Zoom. Maybe she can't get it working.
Okay, yeah, she's got, we'll have to get her
Oh, I
session.
can hear.
You can hear her?
Brigitte?
She has lectured around the world. You can sort of hear you, Brigitte.
Can you? I don't know what button to press. Hang on, I'll get some technical assistance. I won't be a second. You guys keep talking. I'll come back.
Yeah.
And she's what, in Spain?
No, she's in Liverpool. She's from Denmark, but she lives in Liverpool.
Okay.
Maybe she just needs to turn the volume up.
She's getting, I think, her husband to help her here.
Okay.
And
Yeah, it just
where
sounded
are those
quiet.
crickets coming from? Anybody hear those crickets?
Yes.
What is where's that?
That might be me. I'm out in the woods.
Oh, cool.
So I'd like to get Alfred's information too.
Alfred?
At some point. Yeah.
Where did you go? Yeah, Jeff, were you the one that was in Mount Shasta and saw the smoke? I'm not sure if that was you or.
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, well, that's why I wanted you to see this footage that I sent Greg. I'm trying to get on my email so I can post it, but this happened in my meditation room, and it's like a Zendra kind of a effect with orbs coalescing within the energy, and then there's a port that opens with this being that comes through. And I don't know why, Greg, I don't know why you're not getting it, because I sent it to you. I sent you the picture, the still picture, and then in the video clip just now.
Well, at that last meeting, I heard you do a description of a portal, and that, to me, the bells were ringing. And I think that's probably what we had up on the mountain in.
Do you have that on video? Do you have that on video? Because I have that on video, and I'd like you to see it. So you.
Yeah, I would like to see that. Yeah, I didn't get anything on camera. No.
Oh,
I was.
If you want to private chat me, I'll forward it to you.
Okay, I'm not sure. If I can.
We should do a presentation of it next. If Alfred, if you can come on next week, next time. Yeah. Won't be next week, but if you come on again, you can figure out how to take over the screen. And if you get on a regular computer, it's pretty easy. And
then, I'm on my phone. I'm down to 10% power too. So just so you know. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so let's set those up for next week. If we is Brigitte ready to dazzle us? Oh, there we go.
I have this on.
Okay. Yeah, she's loud. She's loud and clear.
Don't know how to do this one.
It's good. We see you. We hear you.
She can't hear you now, I don't think. Brigitte?
Yeah. Hey.
There we go. Is it raining there?
You know what? It's not.
Oh, the sound again.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
You have to talk a little louder.
Okay. Okay. I think I'm gonna hang on a second. I'm gonna turn my speaker down a little bit. Okay. I think that might help. How about that? Can you hear me now?
You still have to speak a little louder.
All right. Can you hear me
there
now?
You go. There you go. There you go.
Oh, brilliant. Right. So
welcome.
Thank you for having me on. It's been very interesting. Wow. I mean, I've never been to Shasta, and I would love to go. I really would. I spoke to Paula Harris last year about Shasta and the experiences that people have there. And listening to everyone this evening, I think a lot of people have experiences. There seems to be a group of people who have experiences that are classified paranormal in a way, that they would talk about spirits or, for the lack of better words, ghosts. And then we have another group of people who see something that they think is off-worldly, such as UFOs or aliens and things like this. Then there's a group of people who they go through the whole life and they never ever see anything. And then there is that group that gets all of it, a little bit. There's a dabbling into, they get these experiences. They don't really know what it is. And some of it seems to be in the ghostly area, and some is in perhaps extraterrestrial. So my question this evening is, the people who go to Shasta, are they people who have already had experiences? Are they like experiences in one way or the other, or have they never had any experiences? Or and also the other question is, do those people, in the case that they have already had experiences, is it necessary for them to go to Shasta to have that experience? Because I think from what I get from some of the what people are talking about from Shasta is that it seems that the experiences are related to them. It's like it's personalized. They get that what they are experiencing is aimed at them, and not the group, part of the group that they're with. And so yeah, that's my question. I mean, I've had a number of different experiences, and I don't know where it leads, and I don't know if it will stop. And I haven't been to Shasta. I would love to go personally. The more I listen to people talking about Shasta, the more jealous I get. I really want to go and experience it. It is possible that is a portal, and then somehow, if people who are already getting this, when they go to Shasta, they will get these experiences. And then perhaps if you get people who've never had it, will go to Shasta and really will not experience anything. So my question is, are there people who are linked into that side of things, and people who will just never get those experiences? And that's for anyone here in the chat room. I'd be interested in hearing what you guys have to say.
I can speak to that, and then I'll let, there's a number of people who are at Shasta that can speak for themselves. What I find is you got a lot of repeaters there. What I found this time when I went to Shasta is I would run into a lot of people who had been to a number of CE5 events, especially the Stephen Greer events. And when I did the interviews with these people, I would ask them about this because I would immediately say, because you always hear the thing about Stephen Greer, nothing happens, he just charges lots of money. So immediately, as soon as I heard, you've been to a Stephen Greer event? Really? So anything happened? And they go, oh yeah. And I go, well, I got to get you on camera. I got to get this story. So what I think you'll find is a lot of people who are at Shasta come every year. So once you've had an experience, once you've been there, and it's not all just UFO stuff, it's very spiritual. You become bonded to these people, almost like at a conference. You'll see the same thing at conferences, where the same people come every year. They know who everybody is. That's your family, because your regular family doesn't listen to you. But a lot of the people are people who've had CE5 events elsewhere, and they're sort of, well, I'm going to go see what's happening at Shasta. Then they go there and they realize it's not just so much about UFOs, it's about the people that you meet there, and you become lifelong friends with the people that you meet there, and you hear their experiences. You become bonded to them. So that's basically my experience. I've been twice, and I know sort of two sets of people. But I still know all these people. I still keep in contact. And what you'll see is there's a group on the Facebook, if you can get into it. It's called the Mount Shasta group. And you'll see these people are talking all day long, every day. The same people that were at Mount Shasta are talking about events that are happening in their life and different ideas and stuff. So it becomes much more than just going like to a football game to watch an exciting event. It becomes a lifetime experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds interesting. And I think that's the case. But what I'm wondering is, if you go to Shasta, is that the start of something happening, or for some people perhaps, or some people who go to Shasta has already had experiences and then they're getting more experiences. I think really what my question is, are some people more likely to have experiences, and then there's some people who will simply just never have experiences? Is it something that goes on in someone's head, that they seem to be receiving something that other people are not receiving. Like so if you're having a ghostly experience and you see something and
Yeah.
you definitely see it, but then the people you're with, they don't see it. I can't
Yeah.
understand how you can see something that the other people can't see it, right?
Okay, but
So that makes me wonder. Yeah.
but what you have, like, Jan can jump in on this, because when I met Jan there, he started telling me these and you'll see my interview with him has just been posted. I do a long interview with Jan. But when I talked to Jan, he was telling me these stories. I'm going like, man, I got to get you on tape, man. So then what you do is you sort of hang around Jan the whole weekend, and he doesn't see anything. So even though you've got experiences, doesn't mean you're going to see anything at Shasta. There are people like Maddie and Ray and people like that who are sort of considered to be antennas. They can do the automatic writing. They can sort of tune into the phenomena much better than other people. But a lot of people like myself, I had one experience in 2017. This year, I documented what other people were seeing, but I didn't really see anything. And most of my experiences were in 1975, 1976. So it's a little of both. Jan, can you jump in on this and give your...
Oh yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to. So I would say, Bridget, from my experience, if you ask, that is a great way. Understand that these are conscious beings, intelligent beings, and if you want a certain type of contact, the information that you can give of what you would like to experience will help them, because they want to respect your consciousness and your comfort level. And so with me, literally, when I ask for things, very often that is exactly what will happen. So for example, to not have a being appear in a room with me, because at the beginning that was very frightening to me, I would ask for a ball of light to appear off in the distance and gradually come to me. And you need to be very specific in what you request. But so in my life, I've had a long history of contact. But at Mount Shasta, what was very interesting is that contact changed. I mean, the other events still happen, but in addition, so for example, Enrique told us that if we want to contact other beings, we need to be able to talk to each other and be able to talk to trees. And I went with a close friend that I had actually just met, but we had all these strange synchronicities. And we're both the New Year's baby of our hometown, which is very strange, and both left-handed. But we both went, after meeting for like 5 minutes, we both went to Shasta for our first time. And we hung out under this tree together and talked and just had a really nice chemistry. And I think that chemistry was appreciated by the tree. And literally the night after we left the main camp, this is in 2017, we were back at our hotel and we were chatting, and then we closed our eyes to go to bed. And I immediately got this strange vision in my third eye, I don't know, a movie playing in my head. And it was these little pine needles. And I thought, what is this? What am I seeing? And then it zoomed out, and it was a tree branch, and it was a tree from Mount Shasta. And I got a very clear message, and it was, we miss you. Thank you for coming. And I was blown away. The next morning, I told my friend, and she said, oh my God, when I closed my eyes, I got an image of the snow-capped Mount Shasta, and I got the exact same message. Thank you for coming. We miss you. And then fast forward, in Chicago, I was back in Chicago. I was talking to a friend who has all kinds of wild experiences, and I was jealous of the experiences he was telling me, and I was trying to understand how he gets his information. And he's like, you have so much contact. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, right now you're being surrounded by this beautiful white light. I have no idea what he's talking about, but and I'm like, okay. And he's like, it's coming from a tree in Mount Shasta. He had no idea I'd been to Mount Shasta. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, wow. So he has amazing experiences, but there was that. And then another experience I had was in 18, we were in Circle at the same camp we were at in 19. And there was this orb that came through the trees, and it hovered about 5 feet above the trees. And then it came in to the circle, and it just hovered there kind of bobbling. And it was just an amazing experience. And I was spazzing out. There was that same girl was with me, and then this other guy that I had just grabbed and pulled because I wanted somebody to experience it with me. And we all three saw it. And I kept saying to the group, because they were all just kind of chatting, I was like, are you seeing this, guys? Are you seeing it? And they're like, we see it. we see it. And I was like, there is no way that you see what I see, because that is just that there's no way you would have that expression. And then people started saying, oh, it was the space station. I'm like, that was not the freaking space station. The space station doesn't hover motionless, you know, at the trees. And I think more happened than I totally was expecting it to come down to the ground and materialize into a being. But fast forward after that event, in Chicago, an orb visited me at the skyline and started flying around and doing all this crazy stuff in front of buildings, which I have on camera, and I can share it, but it's very embarrassing because my audio is on there, and I'm very excited. And then anyway, so that happened, and I tried to share that experience with my brother, and he was like, "Oh, it's a drone, it's a drone." And I'm like, I don't think that's a drone. And then I go to my parents' house in Birmingham, Alabama, and it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, and they have a large property. And I'm getting something out of my car, and I look back at their house, and at the north end, the gable of their roof, it's a north-south axis house. At the north end of the house is that same thing bobbling 5-10 feet above their house. And then it just slowly bobbled to the south. And so to me, that was within days of the experience in Chicago. But anyway, I believe it's the same orb that I saw in Mount Shasta. But other than that, you know, I felt the door when we went to the portal the first time. I meditated there, and the whole rock started vibrating and rocking, and that blew my mind. And so I had that. But other than that, you know, I mean, I've seen the light phenomena that I see at normal CE5s, you know, amplified. But yeah, the other stuff in meditation and all that, I rarely get much. But yes, I think there, you know, I would definitely go.
Hey, Grant, I've got this on my screen. This is Alfred. How do I get it to everybody?
Yeah, I think I got the video to work here if we want to take a peek.
Yeah.
Try to bring it up.
Let's try.
Okay.
Somebody take the screen is in the middle. If you want to, whoever's taking over the screen, it's in the middle. It's a green box in the middle at the bottom. It says share.
Oh, okay.
Click on the share and it'll pop your screen up.
Oh, here it is.
There you go. We got
Here.
Greg's screen here.
Yeah, here it comes.
Okay.
Can you see it? Can you see it?
We can see your screen. We don't see the video yet.
Well, I got it playing.
Oh, you got it playing. Oh, we just see the still the desktop with the IMG 3903.
Yeah. Then I don't know how to do it. Sorry.
Let me try it because I've got
Okay.
it on mine.
Okay, so
Let's see if I can do it. Go to share.
okay.
Where'd it go? I didn't name this stuff. Hold on a minute. Let me find unshare. That's bizarre.
Question for Jan while we're waiting. Are you a New Year's baby?
I am the New Year's baby of my hometown. Yes.
There you go. So am I.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Are you the New Year's baby? Like
No, I am in a big city, so I wasn't the first. I was the second heaviest.
Wow.
I was 9 pounds 6 ounces. Anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, you got me.
How many people have Rh negative blood while we're on here?
I might. I don't know.
I have AB minus.
Okay. That's the whole blood thing about the big debate about our special blood. I'm an Rh negative.
I might be Rh negative. I'll check my license. I think that sounds familiar. Definitely Rh. I don't know if there's different types of Rh.
Oh,
Here we go.
I saw the helicopter. There we go. We got a video coming here. Here it clicked. Started.
Yeah, there it is.
Got some orbs flying around. And where is this inside a what?
This is my meditation room in my house.
Pretty active meditation room. Holy cow.
Wait till you see what you're going to see.
Is this without lights?
Yes, this is just me in the dark with my phone. This is
Oh, there you go. Are you
see
watching,
the
Jeff?
coalescing of the orbs.
Is Jeff watching here? It's the smoke that was being described. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that was an A-port that came through, and there was a Bing that came through. I'll have to send it to you. But you feel this electrical charge, and this what seemed like a minute or two. When I looked at my watch, it was an hour and a half later.
So what was the apport?
You missed it already. It went through so fast. But there's a Bing that came through in the A-port, and I'll have to try and pull up the picture of it.
Wow.
Unless Gregory has it. I think I sent it to Gregory.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, you can do a presentation next time. Get it all set up, and then we'll do a presentation.
Yeah, I would like him to share that one that you have, that moving band. It's like
Oh yeah. I've got so much Grant that it's really.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna do an interview. You and I are gonna do an interview. So get it all set up. I'll let you take over the screen. We can even practice a bit, and you can do it.
So what's that on the floor there in front of us?
That's a puja table.
A who?
Puja table.
Yeah.
The Vedic Sanskrit puja table where I do my ceremony.
Okay.
And I do it in intention to invite higher states of consciousness and extraterrestrial star beings to join me. And
so the only light on in the room, is that the one up at the top there we see?
No, that's a reflection of a light that's just showing up for some reason.
And so where's the light coming from?
The light's coming from my phone.
Okay.
The phone's lit up.
Wow. I can actually give you some photographs from Chris Bledsoe around. Well, I'm not going to give the whole Chris Bledsoe story, but the burning tree. He has piles of these photographs of this that same smoke stuff going around the tree, and some of them are pretty clear.
Faces and masks and just really bizarre stuff coming through.
Has anybody else got smoke? Been able to photograph this smoke type stuff? I got quite a few, but they're all from Chris Bledsoe.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to Chris about that because it's becoming more intense, and the orbs are becoming more coherent. And,
well, that does happen. Yeah, that does happen. And once you encounter the phenomena, it sort of takes off. It's like Chris.
I'd like to talk to Chris myself because I know he's a Pentecostal.
Until they threw him out of the church, yeah. But he didn't have his first experience until he was 46 years old. Yeah. And when he first had it, he thought it was the end of his life. Is like he wanted God to take him away, and now you can't shut him up about it. He's like, once he realized what was going on, and it just really intensified as it was going along. It just got more and more intense. And same with Tony. If we can get Tony on with his stuff, when you see the first photographs that Tony Bintz, who's been on this gathering a couple of times, he got these just sort of simple UFO orb type objects in the sky. And now he's photographing like moving like beings and giant hearts and just like totally stuff that you'd go like, oh, you got to be making this stuff up. You got to be floating a balloon or something. It was like just really weird. And this is he didn't have his first UFO experience until maybe 2 years ago. And he's like in his 50s. So
he was getting the number 9 a couple of days ago. The number 9. I mean, you saw those photos of the Chassa Grant. That's number 22 and the Green Goblin, as he calls it, and the hearts and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, he's been getting more than 9s and stuff. The numbers are interesting because they change and then they turn into a very distinct number, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Wow. Jung said that the number is the most primitive of all the archetypes.
Yeah.
And so everything is based on number. So in number symbolism, 9, from my understanding of it, would mean new beginnings.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, he gets stuff and it changes. Like it'll change from one. Who's showing here? Whose screen is this?
This is Alfred.
That's me. That's during that smoke. That's the A-port. I kind of highlighted the arc with the being coming through. You can see the elongated face and the tubes on the side of his head.
Okay. Yeah.
That's him looking towards me.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is like Rorschach tests. You see what everyone would see something probably different, but this is what Alfred sees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you say an eye intensifying, Alfred?
What's that?
You're saying it's intensifying. It's getting more.
It's getting more coherent. But what was told to me in a dream state that night after that experience is that it was Thoth's energy, the deity from the 4500
The Egyptian.
Egyptian, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Fascinating stuff.
T-H-O-T, right? T-H-O-T?
T-H-O-T, yes. And in relation to Seth and is it the Greek god Hermos or Hermes?
Yeah, Hermes.
So there's a lot of interrelation between all of this and how we interpret it, but they conveyed things from the green tablet, or the emerald tablet, which I talked to Gregory about the first phrase in the emerald tablet is basically as above, so below. We are one mind. So
Yeah.
it all references back to oneness, as Grant has said before. It's all
Well, yeah, but it's more than oneness. It's the emerald tablet. First line is as above, so below, for the unity of the one thing, which is the union of the opposites of, like the union of the opposites in today's world is so not played out properly through our political realm of blue and red, right? The blue and the red battle, It reminds you of Yeats's poem, The Second Coming. Really, the falcon can't hear the falconer. The center isn't holding. And each of us are asked to unite the opposites and try to, take the best of both worlds and make it work here.
Wow. Okay,
well,
so
I'll put something together for you, Grant. Next
Yes.
time we do an interview.
we'll arrange something for next week, and so everybody can watch for that. We'll shut her down now, but everybody can watch for that interview. We'll post the interview. You'll go through it, and then people can ask questions, and we may get you to show a little bit more next week.
There's a lot to see.
Yeah, well, we'll do the interview. We'll go through it. You've practiced, and you know how to get it on the screen now.
Bye-bye.
And so we'll have one. I'll have to see, maybe next weekend, but at the end of the month I'm gone. I'm traveling, so I probably can't do it while I'm traveling, because I'm traveling both Saturdays. We may have a Sunday, but anyway, we'll do another one down the road. We've got everybody's email addresses, and a little bit.
We're gonna do a podcast then later on.
Yeah, yours I'll broadcast. I'll put it on my YouTube channel so we can do the whole thing, so people can see it all. And just for a little update, 2 weeks from now is the big Area 51 thing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm involved. There's a bunch of people. There's a video that we've got coming up from Debs, who's on earlier today, about the Area 51 thing. We also, and I'll leave it at this. I'm helping a woman by the name of Joe Wood, who was married to Ronnie Wood from the Rolling Stones. She was with him for 30 years. She has had her UFO experience. She had a UFO experience with her son. She's down the rabbit hole. And so I would encourage you to listen to her broadcast. It's called Alien Nation. Joe Wood, J-O Wood. And I'm linking up some of the top people in the world with her, because she's very famous, connected to the Rolling Stones. She's doing this broadcast, and so I would encourage you to listen to her broadcast. We're going to have Colin Andrews on there, some really big names, people who don't really do interviews. We're going to try to get Jay-Z Knight on there, and a lot of the big rock stars. We've got the contacts. We're just trying to line them up now. And so watch her. She's going to be doing interviews with very, very famous people about UFOs. And that may sort of change the way people look at things, because she does have a lot of power. She's a big, rights person with against plastics, for cleaning up the earth, for cleaning up the food supply. But she's a very, very powerful lady who suddenly got into this game. So her podcast is called Alien Nation. And I'll see if I can set up one for next week. And meanwhile, I have this interview with Alfred. We'll go through it. And I have the interview with Marcel coming up, which should be posted shortly. And he was at Mount Shasta as well. And Marcel is important because he has a lot of videos. In the second half of the interview, for the last 45 minutes, he takes over the screen as Alfred did now. And basically, he shows for 45 minutes a bunch of CE5 stuff that happened in Stephen Greer's groups around the world, different CE5 events. And he has some really, really interesting photographs from various CE5 events. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks everybody for showing up. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at whitehouseufo@gmail. If you know anybody that might want to be interested in these podcasts, we usually, request that the person sort of has an experience or that they're not, want to fight with us and stuff like that. But pass the link on. We'll send the link out to everybody. And I want to thank everybody for your contributions. And hopefully we'll talk to you again next week, because the next 2 weeks after that, I think I'm gone. So,
Grant, are you going to Roswell?
no, I'm at where I'm doing Toronto. There's a big conference in Toronto, and then I'm going to Stanton Friedman's files. I'm going to go and look at all Stanton Friedman's files in New Brunswick. So that's be about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And that's it. So.
Okay, good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Grant.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Namaste.
Namaste.